Welcome to the Financial Dad podcast, and welcome back to our business planning series for creatives and young entrepreneurs.
Welcome back to the Financial Dad, the show where we ask our real dad, a certified financial planner, everything you need to know about starting a business. If you never learned it at school or at home, don't worry, because now you've got a financial dad too.
In our earlier videos, we talked about your business, the vision, the mission statement, as well as your target market and USP. So if you haven't had a chance to look at those videos, click here and head back to learn more. Today, we're going to be going into what is a SWOT analysis. And I know that my sister Hallie has never even heard of that term. She thought it was an actual SWAT team.
I was like, SWOT analysis, like as if SWAT is going to come into your business? Like, what is that?
If you're thinking that, Hallie, so many other aspiring entrepreneurs are going to be thinking the same thing. So I'll let you take it from here, Hallie. Ask your questions. Dad's ready.
Okay. So I think to start us out, what is a SWOT analysis? I'm guessing it's an acronym. So what does it stand for and why? What's the purpose? Why?
Well, SWOT is SWOT, not SWAT, SWOT. It's a way of looking at your business and trying to take advantage of the good things about your business and blunt the potential damage from negative things about your business. So everything you do strategically after that is typically trying to accomplish one of those two things. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And obviously the idea is to take advantage of strengths and opportunities, to make the most of those in however you market and run the business. And then in terms of threats and weaknesses, to come up with strategies that would nullify them or reduce the potential impact of those to you. And every business should take an honest look at itself and honestly answer the questions: what are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are our opportunities? And what are our threats? So that's what the SWOT analysis is about.
How does someone answer those questions, like honestly? How do you figure out your strengths? What are there exercises that you do, or are they personal strengths? Are they technology strengths? I'd love to hear some examples, and we can use our coffee shop if that's helpful, but how do we come up with those strengths?
Yes, well, it is strengths in the business context, okay? So for example, let's talk about the financial dad. So what do we have here with the financial dad? What are our strengths? Well, you have a person with a tremendous amount of financial knowledge and experience, certifications, etc. Then you have a person with terrific PR background and experience who understands social media and that kind of thing. And then we have Hallie, who has the on-air presence of a goddess and who also does a lot of the editing and the grunt work in the background. So between the three of us, we have skill sets that are complementary and that help us get this done. So a business strength might be a good location of a business. It might be a very solid email list of prior customers. It might be, for a financial advisor, it might be somebody who's very gregarious, amicable, lovable. Their personality is a real strength, or good on stage. So for example, maybe that person should do seminars as a way of marketing themselves, podcasting. So that would be some examples of some strengths. How can a business owner or an entrepreneur, a startup, fairly assess those strengths? It's not that easy, especially when you come to the weaknesses, because they're even harder to assess. You have to really be reflective about yourself and things that you as a person may be weak at, like business. I'm a terrific coffee maker, but I know nothing about business. So weakness might be that, we don't have depth of staff in operating or managing a business. We don't have a lot of cash. We don't have a storefront Main Street location. We're kind of around the corner a little bit. It could be that we have inferior technology. It could be that we lack staff. Those kinds of things in general for a business owner. Any individual weaknesses, like, I'm not good in front of a crowd, or I'm not good at running a business, or I don't understand accounting. Just to follow up on it, this stuff becomes important because, for example, let's say I'm not good in front of a crowd, but I have let's go to BrewZone, a coffee store. I may want to hire some energetic, young, gregarious person to stand out in front of my store and offer samples to passersby as a way of getting them into the store. I shouldn't do it myself if I'm just going to turn them off, right? If I'm not like going to be fun with them. So what you're going to do is, as you develop these individual strengths, the weaknesses, you go back to them and you look at it and go, this is a weakness. How do I overcome this weakness? If I don't have a lot of cash, I don't have a lot of money for a marketing budget, but I do have a big email list, which is free to market to. So we're going to take great advantage of that email list. We're going to hammer the email list as our way of getting going, rather than spending money on ads or direct mail pieces, something that's going to cost a lot of money, may or not return anything, but we don't have the money for it. So that's strengths and weaknesses. Opportunities would be things like, I have a connection that, could get a celebrity to come in and do an Instagram reel for something of what we're doing. Okay. I have a connection that could market my coffee through 20 stores in the Midwest where I know the owners or the accountant or something that could make a connection and help me to get there. Opportunity might be my email list reaches 100,000 people within a 20-mile radius or 30-mile radius that I can, utilize to market the company. It might be that I have special pricing on some commodity or on something that would allow me to sell for a period of time at a lower price than my competitors. You have to think through, what are all the good things? What are all the things that get me excited? There's an opportunity. There's a chance. There's something good could come of this if we do something a certain way. In my field earlier in my career, the opportunity was that many financial advisors wanted to leave very big company names and wanted to be able to put their own name on the door, Tim Smith and Associates, but didn't want to have to start all of the operation and regulatory pieces that are needed to be in the background to allow them to work with clients. So they would partner with my company. They could partner with a company like me, and I would be doing all the back office regulatory and processing work and stuff like that. And they would just be out there working with their clients. No one ever knows who my company is, basically. But we give them the opportunity to put their name on the door as they want. But that market dynamic of financial advisors wanting to do what we call going independent, starting their own company, in effect, and putting their own name on the door, that market dynamic was an opportunity. And, 95% probably of the success of my career has been the fact that I took advantage of that opportunity and milked it for all that I possibly could. So
I have a question around opportunity. I was listening to a podcast, my favorite one, called My First Million. I don't remember what the guy's name was, but he talked about how there's usually seasons of opportunity. And he talked about throughout history, there's usually like this period of time where the opportunity is the greatest, where
a window
of time where you have maybe the internet has started. So software companies are starting to be developed, or, like Tesla and Rivian, they like realized with the lithium batteries, and the railroads, in the, I don't know, I'm not going to say the years correctly, but he was just talking about all these like windows and pockets of time. So with opportunity, how can you be on the cusp of that like window? How would you see what an opportunity is in the season that you're currently in? Because you obviously saw that for your own company.
So this is where having some sort of experience in a field matters, because you have to understand your field well enough to know that something's changing. Something's happening. In my case, I started getting phone calls from people as I learned more about why they wanted to join my company and what the dynamic was that was going on that got them to call me. I realized, okay, this is part of a changing dynamic in the financial advisory business. And I reached out to companies that work with financial advisors and also recruit those financial advisors, but to put their client monies on their platform. And I took advantage of that for the first 10, 15 years of what I've been doing. That was exactly how we built the company. I didn't pay any money to advertise. I just rode that wave. But I had the experience in the industry to know that this change was happening. When people are calling you up and basically saying, is there any chance you can help me by letting me join your company? Yeah. So in every field, yes, there are windows of opportunity. industry goes through boom and bust periods and cycles and time periods of change, changing technologies, changing structures, things like that. Now, you don't have to be at the front of that to be successful, but you do have to get the right dynamic. Tesla was the
I feel like we really understand what opportunities are and how to figure out when you can take advantage of them. But I'm wondering, what is a threat? Because my brain is going to competition, but I don't know if that's necessarily what we're supposed to be thinking about.
Well, competition is certainly a threat, but the threats can be broader. So, for example, in the financial services world, it could be regulatory changes that drive costs up higher. So that could be a threat. Competition, it could be another coffee shop opens up down the block. Your costs are not guaranteed for your product. Your cost to buy your materials are not guaranteed or capped. And so your profit margins could be hurt by inflation or by rising prices, something along those lines. So it's all the things that could hurt the business, hurt the profitability of the business, keep you from being successful, and largely, at least seemingly, things outside of your control. You've got to do things to try to deal with them.
On the pipeline in the future, like aren't necessarily problems now, but things that you need to be keeping in mind and like planning ahead for.
Well, they may exist today already, and you're still going to go forward. You don't go, oh, gee, there's more than one coffee shop in a 50-mile radius. I can't do a coffee shop, But you have to account for the fact that there is that risk out there, that threat to your profitability, your market share, if you will, that is out there.
For anyone who's new to the series, we've been taking a fictional coffee shop called BrewZone through our business planning series, just so you guys can get like real examples of how all of this works. So,
Bridget, you want to start by giving me, let's say, some strengths and weaknesses of the BrewZone brand, and let's see how we do here.
Okay, so strengths, I would say a very strong vision for what they want. They really can envision this Instagrammable coffee shop that is vibrant, a really great gathering place. So a very strong vision. And the owner has worked in a coffee shop before. So they have experience working in a coffee shop. So that would be a strength, I would assume. And then weaknesses, they've never run their own coffee shop. They've worked in it, so they have the experience of like the background and, making the best cup of coffee, but they don't know operationally how to run it yet.
Okay. So what could they do about that weakness to deal with it better?
I think it probably comes down to hiring the right person. So maybe it's a manager or a mentor or an operator who can guide them on some of those missing pieces.
So maybe a consultant. Someone who would help them get the operational and financial and accounting aspects of it, ordering, inventory, those pieces of it. But yeah, your point is well taken. If you have the weakness of lack of experience in those areas, you got to try to fill that weakness. Otherwise, you won't run the company well.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, good. Okay, so what about the strengths? How can they capitalize on their vision or their experience in running the front side, let's call it, of the house?
Well, because they've already run the front of the house, they know what people like. They've already probably received that feedback from customers directly of what works, what people actually like, what they come back for, what they buy time and time again. So there's a little bit of proof of concept with that strength. And also the vision that they have, they've seen it work in other locations, like around the country. They've seen some of these cool kind of vibey coffee shops come up. So they're not the first to try to make a non-chain coffee shop.
Okay, again, proof of concept. They've seen it work elsewhere, and they have experience to know, let's say, in their area in particular, what would probably fly and how to service people properly and all that kind of thing. Okay, so Hallie, what would you say would be some opportunities for BrewZone and some of the threats to BrewZone?
Okay, so for opportunity, I'm thinking, right, the time that we're in post-pandemic, a lot of people have gone to working from home, but are also feeling very disconnected from people around them and need accountability. And I speak from personal experience. So I think that this is actually a time that's very ripe with people needing being around other people in a flexible space that feels like you can camp out in and get work done in, but also stimulating and you can focus. So I think that now is a good time to create something like this. Does that help?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that would be one. There would have to be more opportunities than just that, right?
Coffee bean wholesale who like can get us a really good deal on really strong, authentic Colombian.
Because of their past experience working in a coffee shop, they have a connection with a wholesaler. That's the opportunity.
That's the Lord.
How about a storefront on Main Street is coming available in 2 months, and we're hoping to move into that so that we'll be right on Main Street. Something a little more concrete, too. First of all, there should be more than one opportunity, right? So there has to be a bunch of opportunities. But yeah, I think what you presented is a great opportunity. Yeah. Now, how about threats?
So threats, there are already, let's say on Main Street, there is already an established coffee chain doing well for years, but is definitely like cut and dry, basic. Like it's, you don't really want to spend hours there, but people do because it's the only place to go in town. Okay, so that's a threat. And then also, can we say that inflation is a threat? Like people not wanting to spend their money as much, like people wanting to be more frugal? Are they actually going to want to come to a new coffee shop and spend their money here if they weren't going to the other one before? Or
Well, you could. You could. The first one's more businessy, direct competition nearby.
the other ones are existential.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the second one, inflation, yeah, it threatens people's ability to spend money. Now, that could be an opportunity. What if the other coffee shop, is selling $7 cups of coffee because inflation's been rising and they think they can command that? Well, guess what? We'll sell $5.50 cups of coffee that are just as good and where we have a big margin on it still, and we'll undercut the market. So, the inflation, we could be a solution to the inflation for the buyers, or, the inflation could be killing the ability of people to buy our product and our own costs are going up. That could be a threat. So, in answer to that, you might look at it and say, we need to really cut costs. We need to protect ourselves against the rising cost of coffee beans. I mean, literally, you can go into financial markets and hedge the future cost of coffee so that you spend some money, but you won't be damaged if it rises above a certain cost level, for example. Those might be things that they do to deal with those threats. So again, just to kind of go back to where we started, all the strengths, all the weaknesses, especially the weaknesses and the threats, but the strengths and the opportunities. You want to be sure that what comes next in the planning stage is going to address every one of those and either take advantage of them or have an answer for them.
And going off of that, we would love for all of you, if it's helpful, to go through your own SWOT analysis, figure out the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to your potential business, and figure out what you would want to do to combat them and take best advantage of what you've got going on. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you with the next one to figure all that out.